All right, welcome to the Two Sons Podcast. We are hitting the Acolyte trailer, the newest of the Acolyte trailer. It kind of dawned on me the other day. This is the first bit of live action content outside of the Skywalker storyline.
Dude, it's been a long time, huh?
It starts with Anakin Skywalker, ends with Rey Skywalker. It's 9 movies, all these shows.
All these Skywalkers.
We're finally getting out of the Skywalker line. Are you excited, man?
I'm stoked. I cannot wait to get some live action content going. Of course, we love Tales of the Empire. It's incredible. But to get some real content going on with Star Wars.
I'm excited too.
Yeah, I'm surprised how many theories you have on this. Because
I have a bunch of theories.
You and I are both, huge Star Wars nerds, obviously. But I leaned into this trailer as just kind of like just consumption of what the trailer could be. My gears were not turning a whole lot for some reason. And then I was expecting you to say the same thing. I was just like, oh, those are like some dope looking characters. This will be great. And then you're like, I have so much to tell you. I was like, what? What do you got for me, Jay?
So I want to start with like a basic premise question. Let's say that based on the surface level stuff, right? Like there's some sort of fallen Jedi who is clearly killing Jedi, right? And we know that there's like this witch character, right, who runs like a coven of Force users, but that's not super uncommon in Star Wars, right? So, like, I guess let me pitch it to you like this, and then I'll explain why I'm starting to feel the way that I feel. Why would Disney make a random show based somewhere between 300 and 500 years before The Phantom Menace about a Jedi that falls to the dark side and is like throwing some ninja stars and killing some Jedi?
Dude,
like, what is the ultimate
I was
goal?
expecting to have like the tee up. I was not expecting that what you teed up for me. I don't know, Jay.
Exactly. I don't know, right?
Oh, okay.
And so I try to like think of it with the scope of like what is the ultimate goal? Because if you were going to venture outside of the Star Wars existing timeline and try to go into a different timeline,
the Rey timeline,
you have exactly.
All things end with Rey.
It's the Rey Palpatine timeline.
Gosh.
So you have to. There's got to be some specific purpose why they're venturing to this specific era, and so it really came down to me in this latest trailer some specific dialogue that they put in there that really stood out to me.
I'm very curious, man.
So I'll jump to the end first, and then I'll explain.
Okay.
I think the entire purpose of this show is going to be to explain why the Jedi both think the Sith are extinct, but are aware of the rule of 2, because that is the
huge plot hole.
That is a huge plot hole that exists in the Star Wars universe. Is the Jedi? It used to be that there were thousands and thousands of Sith, and then the Jedi defeated the Sith,
right?
And then the Jedi were under the impression the Sith were extinct.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the way, they became aware of the rule of 2 because famously Mace Windu and Yoda are sitting at Obi-Wan Kenobi's funeral, and Palpatine's across the room, and the camera sits on Palpatine, and they go, there's no doubt that the warrior that Obi-Wan killed was a Sith. And then Mace Windu goes, or one of the two goes, but which was destroyed, the master or the apprentice? And so they're very aware of the rule of 2, and they know that but they were also under the impression they were extinct, because when Qui-Gon ran into Darth Maul on Tatooine and went to the council, I think Ki-Adi-Mundi is the first one that's like, but the Sith have been extinct for millennia, right? So like,
classic.
They think the Sith are extinct, right? So like, clearly there's a plot hole there, and I think that this show aims at trying to explain that.
Dude, if that is what this is about, then just more kudos to Dave Filoni.
Yeah, Filoni.
Mr. Dave Filoni, and Dave we trust, right? Because that wasn't a huge glaring plot hole compared to like what plot holes we're used to seeing in any type of media. But that would be really badass if he devoted an entire like section of a franchise to just explaining that one little thing. Oh, that'd be very Dave-esque.
No, I 100% agree. And so, and like Dave is on a mission to save us from Disney.
I know.
And he's done a good job so far.
He's done a great job. Yeah.
So
there's been a notable change since he's been in charge.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree. And I think it's going to be one of those ones where like 5 years from now we're going to have to look back and kind of look at the totality of the job. Yeah. But he's doing an amazing job.
I'm still down to get rid of episode 7 and 9. It's just like 100. If they were truly talking about getting rid of it, I would I would lead that.
It's
push.
not. It's not outside the realm of possibility that I just doubt that they would get
Dude,
rid of 7,
there's
8,
an
9.
entire area of like Disney World devoted to
Exactly.
7, 8, 9.
I think it's
Like,
far more
it's
likely
here to
that
stay.
they just skip far into the future if they wanted to start from scratch or something like that.
Yeah.
But I still think there's a lot of room to go backwards. You know, I almost think it makes more sense to look at the Return of the Jedi as kind of like the end of the story. Let's pretend the Rey stuff didn't happen.
I know.
And then let's expand out backwards,
Yeah.
right? So there's a couple of specific things that I point to. I'm going to put, there's 3 things. This is a 3-part case for why I believe this show is actually about the Sith.
I feel like I'm
revealing-
listening to Two Sons podcast right now, live. No, like I'm
First,
serious. This is great.
There's a scene at the beginning of the trailer where, and I can't remember her name. I should have written it down. But like the main character chick, who's the former Jedi who turns to the dark side
Right.
and is using the ninja
kinda
stars
young.
to kill. Yeah,
Yeah, of all things, Ninja Stars.
Yes.
Very cool.
throwing knives or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. She is talking to some guy somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and that guy says the Jedi justify their galactic dominance in the name of peace, but that peace is a lie.
Mm-hmm.
So, anything stand out to you about that quote?
It kind of feels. There's a couple things. I don't think that this is what you're going for, but it kind of has the vibe of like why Dooku left, right?
Oh,
Like
for sure.
The Jedi are just continuing to fail, right? And there's like always some level of distrust surrounding the Jedi, whether it's warranted or not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what that reminded me of.
If you've read the High Republic books, you know that the Jedi are exceptionally snooty in this
Yes.
era.
Oh,
It's the High
Top-notch.
Republic because they're very high on their horse.
Yeah, they
is
are.
basically the
Yeah.
situation. So
Very
the
pompous.
first line of the Sith code is "peace is a lie."
Peace is a lie. Yeah.
So that was the first thing that stood out to me there. Like, why would Dave Filoni put that line in the trailer?
Because he's an absolute G.
Except for to do something like that.
Yeah,
Now I'm
yeah.
going to come back to that quote in a minute because I have a theory. The
Dude,
second
I'm enjoying
quote
this so much,
is a
Jay.
quote from a Jedi about 2/3 of the way through the trailer, and she goes, "I sense this is only a small part of a larger plan, some sort of shift to tip the scales." Now, what that reminds me of is there is a reference in the Darth Plagueis book where Plagueis refers to something that Darth Tenebris told him about
Right.
Tenebris and his master, who was a Twi'lek, in those two doing something that quote unquote like opened up a rend in the Force.
Right.
Like they did something that like did something to the Force
Yeah.
that actually caused the Jedi to become aware of
Right.
the presence of the growing dark side. Not necessarily the Sith, but of the growing dark side. And so again, like that to me, that significant quote, the small part of a larger plan, that could be anything. That could be the Nile. It's like
Right.
our wall's
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
grow bigger. You know, like that could be anything.
Yeah.
Like, but I won't even get into the Nile.
I know.
But like to me, specifically talking about tipping the scales, you think of the scale
seems
of
galactic.
the balance of the Force.
Yeah.
And so I immediately am thinking like something with the dark side kind of like shifting the
Right.
weight of the scales. The last bit, and this actually takes me back to the first quote. But
Which,
there's
by
a
the way,
scene-
that
Go ahead.
gives the show so much weight. If that's truly the scale that it's on, that's like Anakin being created in the Force type level stuff. Right?
100%. Yeah.
yeah.
I exactly. So, and I do think that's the scale they're going for here. So there's a scene towards the tail end of the trailer where we see the girl, or Throwing Stars girl, on a random island in the middle of the ocean. Kind of looks like Octo, the similar planet that Luke ran
Right.
away to. It might be Octo, maybe something different. Who knows? You know, like
It might
presumably-
not matter.
Presumably, there's like it could literally be Easter Island
Yeah.
on Earth for all we know. Like
Right.
it could be
Probably
anywhere, right? So like, but it's an island in the middle of the ocean, right? And there is a dark hooded figure standing out on the distance, looking out over the ocean, and the girl shows up to him, her, whoever it is, in a similar fashion. I have a theory that dark cladded figure is actually a female, just because it's kind of a smaller build.
Yeah.
But like anyway, she's there in a similar way to Rey showing up to Luke. And so I actually think that Peace is a Lie guy is like somehow is in the inner. So if we think of the Sith at this point,
Yeah.
they lost whatever the great final war was. We know from legends that it's the war with the Brotherhood of Darkness. But whether it's in Legends or if it's going to be some different story, we know the Jedi lose some sort of massive conflict with the Sith 1,000 years before the Phantom Menace. But then the Sith operate in hiding under the rule of 2 for the 500 to 700 years until this point, right?
Yeah.
So similar to what we know from Bane, there's like and from Plagueis, there's a very small list of people that are like in the confidence of the Sith, right? Like Sate Pestage is an example of this from Plagueis, right?
Yeah.
So there's a very small group of people. I have a theory that guy is one of those people.
Not an actual Sith?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that he or that guy is the actual Sith.
Yeah,
Who
I
knows?
wonder. That'd be cool.
But
too.
and he was a smaller build too, so maybe that could be who that character was. But I think this is what I think of. Do you remember in Darth Bane in the 3rd book where they Xana feels like she wants to challenge Bane, but she wants to find who her apprentice is first.
Yeah.
So she's going after that the dude Set Hearth, right?
Yeah,
Set
Hearth.
Yeah. But Bane ends up finding Darth Cognis, or who becomes Darth Cognis, but it's the Huntress is her name, right? And so then basically, like, what they do is the Huntress is going to become the next Sith apprentice, and then Bane and Xana fight each other, and then they agree beforehand, like, hey, like, if you win, you train the Huntress, and if I win, I train the Huntress.
And then the Huntress just watches
and the Huntress just watches,
cool.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that character is the Sith apprentice.
Okay.
And I think the Dark Lord of the Sith is somewhere else in the universe at this point. And I think that dude is looking for his next apprentice so that he can challenge his master.
Dude, that would really open up an option for season 2 of the Acolyte too, huh?
I would hope that they would.
Because then you could actually meet the Sith, the actual Sith Lord.
Absolutely. But that's the thing. So like,
that could be really cool.
I take it to another extent. We know from the 2nd Bane book that the Jedi discover the Sith and on Tython. They just because Derevit, it's this whole, we won't get into it, but like we've done a whole breakdown of the Bane books. You can find them on our YouTube feed.
Which, by the way, if you're a Star Wars fan and haven't read the Bane books,
they're unbelievable.
Do yourself a favor.
Yeah, do yourself a favor and read those books. So Bane runs off to Tython, and there's this epic battle between 5 Jedi Knights, and 4 with blades, and then a battle meditation Ithorian. But 5 Jedi Knights and Masters versus these 2 Sith Lords. And basically, like, the Sith find a way, we won't get into the details, but they find a way through basically killing all of those Jedi to making it look like the Sith are still extinct after. So my guess is that final conflict, the Sith is going to wipe those Jedi out. I think he's going to completely eviscerate them. And then
the guy with the mask, or the chick with the mask, whoever that is.
With the teeth, kind of
teeth
thing.
Mask.
Yeah, I think that the Sith are gonna. We know the Sith are going to win somehow.
Yeah,
we don't know how, and who knows if it's one season or if it's multiple seasons. But the Jedi will be aware of the existence of the Sith, but then they will be destroyed.
Yeah,
and they will be led to believe that the Sith are destroyed, and that could mean many different things. That could mean.
I see.
Because those Jedi Knights, when they ran off to Tython in the Bane book, they informed the council
that they were going.
We're going to get a Sith. And then they send 13 Jedi to check on the situation afterwards, and they find like a couple of dead bodies, and they're like,
that must be the Sith.
Exactly. They're like, that's definitely the Sith.
That's definitely the Sith.
The wiry dude without the hand. That's definitely the Sith.
Yeah.
So does my theory make any sense to you?
Dude, I'm following you to a T. That is a great story. This is plot line, and I with Dave being in charge, I think it's absolutely a possibility.
Do you think it's
because Dave has always paid attention to the greats before him, especially George Lucas, right? I think that's totally possible. If you nail that,
would you like that?
Oh, dude, are you kidding me? Would I like that? That'd be incredible. Well, so Star Wars is always about good versus evil, right? And what's so important about Star Wars is it always has to make sense within the bigger picture, which is why Disney is kind of messing things up, or had been messing things up. This fits perfectly into the existing Star Wars universe, and it adds so much substance while it would do it. That would be incredible.
I agree. And like in general, to me, it's just a really good reason to dive into that. One of the things I like too is like we're in the High Republic era, right? The High Republic has this extensive book history, right, that we're reading involving the Nile.
Some good, some bad.
Yes, exactly. And I have a feeling that's going to kind of tie into this in some way. Really? I would love if they had some sort of revelation having to do with the Sith kind of manipulating the Nile in some way, shape, or form. Because it'd be kind of weird to be like, here's all the stuff with the Nile, but then here comes this like Sith kind of storyline. But my guess, if I had to kind of like just kind of spitball at it, is the Nile storyline more serves to just kind of lay out for us what the galaxy was like in that era.
It kind of
Here's
sets
who
a
was
tone.
in charge. Like Lena So is in charge. You know, Yoda is in the prime of his career. Like these, you know, these specific Jedi. You know, Elzar Mann and all these guys. These are the ones that are currently in these specific positions of power. I think that that's what that storyline mainly serves.
I agree,
like
with
a
you.
stage setup.
I agree. I totally agree with you. To kind of like just set the overall vibe for what that era is. Do you think this is going to be before or after the Nile? I feel like it'd be after.
I hope it's after, but I don't know, and I haven't seen any reference to it. One of the things we know is the Wookiee Jedi we see is not Buriyaga. It's a different Wookiee Jedi. I don't think there's been any specific Jedi that we've seen in there that has been cast. One of them was the. There was one. I'll pull it up, but like there was one that we recognized. Remember? It was
really?
It was a specific. I'll pull it up, but there was a specific. Jedi from the books that we saw in there.
I hope that this is after the Nile because
Vernestra Rowe.
Oh, okay, right.
Vernestra Rowe is a
she's
Vernestra
green,
Rowe
right?
is in the books. I think she's the
like
green
the
one. I think she's the one that makes the reference to the tipping of the scales, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I feel like this. I would like this to be after the Nile. They made such a big deal about the Nile.
I know.
They gave the Nile so much power. It was like, galactic level. The whole entire galaxy is being shut down because of the Nile and whatever their technology was. It made no sense that they were so powerful. And it kind of minimized other bigger stories like the Sith. Like, let's talk about the Sith, please. Yeah.
No, and Markion Rowe is just a little bit of a whiny little bitch.
Yeah, he is.
Like that part bothers me a little bit too.
He was always just so pissed.
Yeah, he's just an angsty, angry teenager.
You can't always be pissed. Yeah.
Yeah, for no reason.
Right.
Yeah. Mark Thompson was over dramatizing him a little bit, I think, too.
Yeah.
Shout out Mark Thompson. But
Mark
yeah,
Thompson,
like,
you're the man.
Markion Rowe, and it's not your fault, Mark.
Yeah.
Like Markion's just a tough character to work with.
He is. You're giving a crap plate. A plate of crap.
But you're making lemonade out of it. It's good.
It's shit lemonade.
Anything else from the trailer that you want?
No, I think that's a great take. Like I said, that was actually really fun for me. I felt like I was watching Two Sons podcast develop. It's like in the room of Two Sons because it's badass.
I always do. Whenever I see trailers, I just immediately start trying to diagnose like what I think is going to happen, and like I am so. By far, to me, the most interesting thing in Star Wars is the history of the Sith. It is by far the most interesting thing.
Totally agree. Like, for sure. Yeah, I agree. I'm not even going to get into that. I totally agree.
Actually, I have another random Sith take before we get out of here.
Hit me.
So, do you remember the line when Anakin cuts off Mace Windu's arm and Palpatine electrocutes him out the window? Mm-hmm. And basically, there's this. It's just a complete shit show in that room. But afterwards, Anakin pledges himself to the dark side. And if you remember, Palpatine has this line. He goes like, "Once more, the Sith shall rule the galaxy, and we shall have peace." Remember that line?
Yeah.
And one of the things I thought about that when I saw that is like in the Legends, the Sith never actually win. Naga Sadow invades and actually does get to Coruscant, but then they get kicked out. Like. Obviously, Revan and Malik when they invade, they do a bunch of damage, but eventually they lose. Eventually, I can't remember his name, but it's the plot of Knights of the Old Republic 2. But they do a bunch of damage and kill most of the Jedi, but they never actually like maintain control of the galaxy. Like the Empire, from what I understand, is the first time that the Sith actually like sat in a seat of power over the entire galaxy for an extended period of time. So I wonder, but that technically
is
canon.
The once more? Is
so
this
like
the original?
No, I don't
where they're
think
in power.
I would certainly be down, but I don't think that's the case. I'm just saying, like, I would be really interested to see them kind of flush out Sith history more and just kind of like explain some of that backstory more. It's what I really hope they get into in the next 10, 15 years.
Agreed. I don't think we're gonna see this, but it would be dope to see like Acolyte 1 being how the Sith gain power, then they're in power, and then Acolyte 2 is how they lose it.
Mm-hmm.
But
That would be fascinating.
That's
but
not
there's
going to
just-
happen.
It can't
there's just
happen
not
because
there's
they
not
were-
enough story availability for like a TV show for that.
Well, that and like what's his name? The guy for I just said his name. The guy, the Jedi Council is like the Sith have been extinct for a millennia.
Coyote Mundi.
Yeah, Coyote Mundi. If he's like, yeah, the Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
Yeah,
except for that
true.
20 years there where they ruled the galaxy in the middle.
Yeah, you're right.
Other than that, though,
Yeah,
we've had them under wraps.
That's a good point.
All right, guys, that is all we have for today. As always, we sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting the show. We will see you next week as we go over Revan and probably the end of Bad Batch as well. We'll see you guys then.
Thanks a lot.
Don't accidentally delete.